Nitish, first of all, I would like to thank you for sparing time for this conversation. And as far as I know that you are the founder of Nazara, a leading mobile games developer and publisher focused on large mobile consumer base in India and in emerging markets, including the Middle East and Africa. In addition to developing a range of branded and original mobile games, Nazara operates unique services such as Games Club and also serves as an exclusive distributor for key game developers such as Electronics Arts. You have also served as chairman of the Mobile Value-Added Services Committee of the Indian Merchant Chambers. As far as my research show that today Nazara is doing business is almost 61 different countries with more than 130 million monthly visitors. And I think in 2017-18, I think 9 in-house games of Nazara were listed among the top 3 games downloaded on Google Play Store. You also recently acquired some stakes in Creams and Cord, and which allow the company to offer real money on winning live quizzes. I think you also acquired around 67% stake in Sportskeeda, and this is what I know about Nazara. So, just to start with, like if you can highlight important events and people who have helped in shaping you and your venture.
Sure. So, I'll start with my own background. I come from a textile business family.
Right.
It was run by my grandfather and my father. I started coding games at a young age at around 7 when my dad bought me a ZX Spectrum, and I was completely into that. So I got into gaming at that age.
Right.
And when I was in college, I wanted to do something around gaming and technology.
Right.
That's when I started starting Nazara. My vision then was that in India, I thought that at sometime in the future, gaming will become very large, and let's get into the business. It was also a passion for me.
Right.
And I thought this was way back in 98, 99. So probably I was in that space, very early.
Right.
But then I persevered, over the years to get to where we are today. We still feel that it's just the gaming opportunity in India is just getting started.
Right.
In terms of people along the way, very early, my mentor was, the legendary actor Shimmy Kapoor.
Yeah, that's
I have read about, had a very close relationship. A lot of time, learned a lot of things from him.
Right.
That's one person who shaped, the events or the way we, went about in the early. My father, of course, by buying the ZX Spectrum at 7,
Right.
first pushed me into the gaming space in that sense.
Right.
My own grandfather, Padma Vibhushan, Dr. B.K. Goyal, who was one of the most eminent cardiologists of India.
Right.
One of the only doctors to be awarded all the 3 Padma Awards, Padma Vibhushan, Bhushan and Shri. Always been a, extremely important idol for me, or the idol for me, not because of his achievements, but because of his humility and, the way he served the poor patients.
Right.
Whatever I do, for me, that's a big influence and has been for me over the last 2 decades in my business career as well.
Right.
Who else? So I think that there are a few people that had key impact on my life, and also obviously through me, in Nazara.
Right.
But then along the way, we've of course had a lot of partners, a lot of investors.
Right.
Westbridge Capital came in 2005.
Right.
And the managing director there, Sandeep Singhal, has worked very closely with me over the last decade and a half.
Right.
One of our first deals we did in gaming was with Sachin Tendulkar, which was a very interesting deal that we did. So it's been a long journey for us. So a lot of stories there.
Right. So I think I heard in some interview, I think you were speaking, and I think in some conference, were telling that Sachin Tendulkar's expectation was obviously much more than what you are, what you have played. If you can just tell that more about that story, because that I found it very interesting. How do you do that?
Early days, and my company was just coming out of the .com crash.
Right.
So we had struggled for 2-3 years, and then we had the idea of doing cricket games with Sachin.
Right.
And obviously in those days Sachin was at his peak.
Right.
So his endorsement deals those days used to be $1 million a year, right?
Right.
Voltail used to manage his account.
Right.
So it was their expectation. At that point of time, I could barely. I think I could afford $10,000.
Right.
So we closed the deal finally at I think $30,000 or something like that. But for Sachin, it was I think more he got interested in connecting with the youth, fans, technology.
Okay.
That deal happened, not so much because of the monetary value offered to him. Obviously, it would be meaningless amount for him, right?
Right. I think that's one more proof of that. What you wish, and if you are passionate about something, you are able to get it, irrespective of what is the size, and even if you don't have that capability at that time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do not get scared of dreaming big.
Right. Great.
I having been in this business for 2 decades, I really think it's only getting started. In the US also, if you see, gaming is much larger than the Hollywood and music industry combined today.
Right.
I think in India, from a landscape perspective, the next decade will really see this become probably the largest interactive or content industry in our country.
Right. Great. And okay. And you've been into now this journey from almost now 2 decades. Right. So, and I'm sure you have solved a lot of challenges, right, from team building to technology to tie-ups, right, to and then taste the market and understand the customer pulse, understand the customer behavior.
And in our business is so dynamic, ever changing, that there are new challenges that come in all the time. Right. But I think for me personally, I still feel as a manager myself, I still have a tendency to land up micromanaging to a certain extent.
Okay.
Which I keep working towards, trying to resolve. We have a great CEO, Manish Agarwal, since the last 5 years.
Right.
So of course he, does a lot, but I still tend to micromanage a bit. So I think that's a challenge that at a personal level I need to resolve.
Right.
At a company level, I think we've done well. We've expanded, like you said, we've in the last 3-4 years done many acquisitions. Right. Some of and we actually acquired 14 companies in the last 3 to 4 years.
Oh wow! Right.
Please send more details on that.
Right.
So I think we've done well. We are building this Friends of Nazara network.
Okay.
In strategy, acquiring other companies and letting the founders, continue to run those companies independently. So I think that strategy is working well for us. Okay. In the last 8 years, we've also onboarded new investors. We had, Rakesh Junjunwala invest in the company. Okay. And especially since we intend to go IPO, having someone's experience from the public markets is always, a strong credibility for us.
Right.
So I think that's helped us quite a bit. So I think on those aspects we are okay, but I think the real challenge really is to keep abreast of the ever-changing expectation and technology, because they are moving very fast and we need to keep up pace with them.
Right, absolutely.
Regrets, I think, one regret that I have is that I think at certain times we could have been more aggressive or had a larger risk-taking appetite.
Right.
But I think, because I started the company in 1999, then the dot-com crash happened. We kind of, burnt our hands for 2-3 years.
Right.
Generally, our DNA became a bit more conservative. So we've run the company in a very profitable, bootstrapped manner, over the years, built it organically.
Right.
But there are certain times that we could have, perhaps been, having more appetite for risk and perhaps have grown faster. But that's, I think, at least we persevered over a long period, and we are well positioned today to take advantage of the growth as it comes along.
Right. Great. And I think if I talk about, say, your future right now, I think IPO is one which you are eyeing on and we're working on. Other, you said that you have created a kind of pool for investors. And I think you have also invested in a lot of new ventures apart from technology also. I think one is, that Biryani Bag, if I'm not wrong.
Personally, I've invested in a handful of companies, but I don't spend a lot of time on that, to be honest. And that also the last 2-3 years only I have done. Yeah, I think we can. So we have 100 million monthly active users today in our network. I think how can we take this to about 400-500 million users in our network?
Right.
Over the next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
How can we, that original vision that gaming will be big in India, and how can we come out as a clear-cut, leader in that space?
Right.
Bringing significant value for our consumers,
right,
and then obviously our shareholders and teams as well. I think the next 2-3 years, I'd really like to see those things, crystallize a lot more.
Right. Great. And so, moving on to the next question. Funding is an important, I think, milestone and I think event from an idea to go to an execution level. So, what is your thought process on funding, and how was your journey? And
so, for us, we raised very little capital for most of our life.
Okay.
We raised, only $3 million in 2005.
Right.
And since then, we bootstrapped the company all the way till 2018, where we raised another $8 million. The larger transactions that happened almost, I think, about $100 million, but they were mainly secondary transactions in the company. So, as our own company, we've been profitable since 2006, 2007.
Right.
So, we've kind of grown through our profits and through our reserves rather than a lot more capital.
Okay, great.
But we had the luxury of time, or took a lot of time, whichever way you see it, because the market didn't exist. So my learnings are, sometimes raising a lot of capital, especially if you're early in the market,
right,
be dangerous. Because I saw in the early years, like in between 2005 to 2010, some companies that raised much more capital than what we did,
right,
landed up burning that capital when the opportunity didn't exist, and then actually went out of business or could not compete with us, whereas we were growing slowly on a profitable business.
Right.
I think having the right amount of capital, undercapitalizing or overcapitalizing the business can be a big challenge.
Right.
It's not just if you are able to raise a lot of capital, does not necessarily denote success or guarantee success. Sometimes it can be around, because you may actually go down a path, burn, which may not be very healthy. And by the time you realize you've already burnt a lot of capital.
Right.
And the related pressures from investors and all of that come to bother you. So I think striking the right balance, in my view, right now is striking the right balance is important. In Nazara, I think we undercapitalized the company.
Right. Okay.
To a certain extent, we really bootstrapped it, but we can get the right. If entrepreneurs can try and get the right balance, it's great. And I think at an early stage, if they can get smart money, where besides the money, they get some entrepreneurs or someone from this industry to kind of work with them as mentors also, I think that can be very helpful.
think very well advised. I think so. Adequately funded is the right word. So neither it should be under nor it should be above, because both are dangerous situation to be in. Great. And some subject is part of my book is basically the customer experience. I've seen, like, if you look into any new idea, any new startup people talk about, right? Although the founders they understand the meaning or the importance of customer experience into developing any business model.
Yeah.
But somehow, I think initially, because obviously your priorities are to establish your model, to test water, and to see that whether people are paying you for that, whatever you are offering, right? They tend to ignore customer experience initially, right? And by the time they realize that that need to be the core of the business model, right?
Yeah.
It is too late. It's too late.
Yeah. Gaming space, retention and virality are extremely important,
Right.
and output metrics of customer experience.
Right.
Because if a game has high retention,
Right.
and it has high virality, only then will it be successful. Because as you know, the gaming space is pretty competitive.
Right.
There are thousands of games on the app stores with new games released all the time.
Right.
Model that operates today is really what in our terminology we call freemium model.
Right.
Which means consumers download the game for free.
Right.
And only if they really enjoy the experience and find value in it, will they end up paying you, for a in-app purchase or for a subscription.
Right.
So from that extent, it is in our business. Of course, in every business it is. But for our business to monetize, it is critical first ensure that the customer experience is strong.
Right.
And it is strong. So one example, we have currently one very successful product called Kidopia, which is meant for young kids, learning from the age of 2 to 7.
Right. Okay.
So we realized that for kids of that young age, you really need to have an entertainment wrapper to deliver education or edutainment. Otherwise, the child will not, be interested. And if he is not interested, we will never monetize. So we very successfully have done that and seen some great results. This product, Kidopia, today is, I think, the number 1 or number 2 app even in an advanced market like US for young kids between the age of 2 to 7. So I think it's something we're learning every day, even now. I can't say we are experts at it. And again, consumer preference is changing so rapidly. Because technology is changing so rapidly, consumer expectation and preference is changing rapidly, right? Because every new device, the capabilities become much better. And therefore, suddenly the consumer used to expect, let's say, X. Now suddenly he wants Y, because his devices are providing that, access or that availability to do that.
Right.
So we are doing now. We do a lot of VOC, try and get even at our POC levels, get the voice of consumer to see how we can keep improving it. But I agree with, it's not that we've always been successful at it.
Right.
We have also learned along the way, and we are always learning along the way.
Okay, great. I think very honestly described on that. And so moving on to my next question, Nitish.
I think the intent to support is there,
Right.
but I think a lot more. There's a lot more that can be done
Right.
in terms of simplification of process for the startups. I find things like the ESOPs and all today are still very restrictive in terms of the way it's offered to companies and to people, to teams. Especially on tech side, if you want startups to really grow, I think some of these things will really have to be fixed far more aggressively. I think honestly, in a country like India, startups will in any case grow because the opportunity is so big.
Right.
Even the constraints, they will grow. But if some of these can be further unbottled or unblocked,
Right.
you can see faster accelerated growth.
Right.
Hopefully that will happen now with the current government wanting to make a lot of companies self-reliant in India.
Right.
Very hopeful that they will pay a lot of attention to this.
Sure. Right. So, Nitish, if you look into success rate of Indian entrepreneurship or ventures, the failure rate is pretty high, and we don't see much of unicorns coming up from India, despite so much of talent we have in our country, so much of ecosystem which has now been created.
I think startup failure rate generally is extremely high.
Right.
India or in the US or anywhere else. I think the only difference is that in our society,
Right.
we still view failure with a little bit negative perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I think in more evolved markets in the US and all, failure is not really looked as negative. It's actually looked at positively that you've done a startup, you failed, so you've gained some great experience.
Right.
VCs actually love to invest or back an entrepreneur who may have started a couple of times and failed.
Right.
So I think encouraging founders to take a risk and not be worried about failing, whether it's from a societal pressure or a credibility perspective, will help people take a lot more risk. In terms of the failure rate, I don't think it's necessarily much higher than what it may be elsewhere. It's just that it's probably highlighted a lot more.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of unicorns, I think we are starting to see faster value creation. I don't know if you followed recent White Hat Junior deal, right?
Yeah.
20 months, $300 million cash exit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're starting to see it happen, right?
Right.
Not dream of before. You're starting to happen, and I think this will only be an accelerating phase. I think what's now our country itself is becoming a market, especially I am talking more in the digital space, becoming a market because now you have hundreds of millions of users you can access. See, when I started, there were like 6 million mobile phone users.
Right.
Now you have hundreds of millions of users, you have fast data, you have great access. So I think it's becoming a large market, and that large market, like what China has been, in the last 2-3 decades.
Right.
Now the entrepreneurs can find that home market, and it's always much easier to work and start something for your home market because you understand the nuances, right? Today, when I'm starting something for US market, I have to understand that culture and all of that.
Right.
Setting up something for India for a founder here is much easier. And now the market has scale. So since the market has scale, it will allow companies to grow faster. The other thing is now there's a lot more capital available. You have in the ecosystem, you have a lot of angel investors, Series A investors. So liquidity is high. So I think even for founders to grow faster, raise capital is much easier with good ideas and decent teams.
Right.
So I think we are at that inflection point at the next decade, this 2020 to 2030.
Right.
I think not only large number of unicorns, but large number of decacorns, $10 plus startups.
Right.
I think it's all happening already. So I'm not pessimistic at all about the state of the startup industry in India.
Absolutely. So I was coming from the fact that 99.5% of SME still remains SME for close to around even in 10 to 12 years also. That's a data which we have worked on.
Yeah.
So one is that you have created a model, you take it to a level, right, where you are able to meet your ends, you're able to create a business viability out of that. But then you stick to it. You don't take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So one failure could be where you fail in terms of establishing a model. Other where you fail to scale it up, right?
Yeah.
And both are important because without skill it doesn't matter. You are still the opportunity could be to deploy or employ thousands of people. You are still deploying 20 people.
Yeah.
That is one I think where we are lacking still. I think what you have said is actually I think we are at a point where I think things are looking pretty fine now, and I think things should be very.
I think mindset of again coming to risk taking, right, and that capital backing. I think mindset of the younger entrepreneurs is now changing very rapidly. Even today, I see significant difference between my own mindset and when I talk to today's 20-year-old startup or founder, right?
Right.
They're already talking much larger numbers, right? Where to go.
Right.
So I think that mindset shift is happening, and with more success stories that you hear, like White Hat and others, I think it will accelerate the thought process of my founders, who will hopefully break through this, glass ceiling of things that you're talking about.
Right. I think White Hat has come at a very right time. I think this is the most appropriate time to actually. It requires that ignition. I think the timing is very right for them. Great.
For me, the few things that I'll share with you what has worked for me.
Yeah.
More, what you should do and what you should not do, because what happens is every startup and every person, different things work for different people, right?
Absolutely.
It has to match your personality, it has to match your company's DNA, it has to match your company's culture.
Right.
I think for me, one is you must have read about this also. This is very famous Muhammad Ali quote which I've always followed, which is float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Right.
And I've always looked at floating like a butterfly by employing 4 or 5 techniques. Be asset light, get into asset light business.
Right.
Is stay away from debt. Right, because my own DNA doesn't go with it, and which is why there might be other entrepreneurs who are fine with it and are actually able to leverage debt to deliver much higher returns to their investors or shareholders. Right, but for me, getting into debt and all doesn't work. So we've always, like Nazara has always been a debt-free company.
Right.
So debt again I personally feel it's kind of becomes heavy and kind of weighs you down. So I try to keep it, the company light, myself personally light by being debt free. The other thing I have always avoided is litigation.
Yeah.
In our history, we've never had any litigation. And again, I feel the reason for that is too much negative energy goes into, fighting.
Right.
You can actually use that energy and time for much more positive returns. So I actually don't, for that what I don't do is to avoid that. One thing I do in all our contracts at the company and all our commitments is we do not make any hard future commitments. So for example, if I'm acquiring a company, right? I know I can pay X amount to this company today to acquire X, Y stake. Right, I'll do that. But a lot of deals are structured in the way, in the next 5 years, every year we will commit so much money to you to keep buying out your stake. Right. We have those kind of structures because I know today in my bank I have so much money and I can afford to pay you. Future, I know what it is and what it is not.
Right.
So I avoid making hard commitments in the future. I prefer to do whatever is in the present.
Right.
So litigation and fighting is something I try to completely avoid. Of course, for that, I think 2 things you have to do, right? One is you have to put your ego behind you, because most of the fights happen because of ego, right?
Absolutely.
I am right or you are right. So I think that is one thing you have to do. Sometimes you have to take a choice of maybe giving little extra or leaving something on the table if things have not worked out. Let's say I got into a partnership and it did not work out.
Right.
Maybe I don't close that deal on a 50-50 basis, maybe a 60-40 basis.
Right.
Of course, it doesn't mean that if something is being done totally wrong, you accept it.
Right.
But most of the times I think that if you are transparent and you're approaching it without ego, things get over a cup of coffee rather than sitting in the court. So that has worked well for me because again avoids too much wasting of time in all those. I think anything that can make you feel light and float like a butterfly you should do.
Absolutely.
Few things that I have done. And in our business you also have to sting like a bee, right? When the opportunity exists, it will be there little time, so you better move fast. And that's why I really like this quote of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Absolutely. I'm in love with that quote because the way you are explaining, the way you do it, I think it makes a lot of synergy and a lot of sense. And how do you use that knowledge and
yeah, it's my own interpretation of it. But anyway,
I think I've seen very few people who actually have knowledge and they apply knowledge on a particular thing. So I think learning from on something from like this and then applying it actually on a ground level is fantastic.
The learning I have has been that, the biggest power we all have is to be positive.
Right.
And I saw this from up close from, for example, Shami Kapoor himself.
Right.
He in his later years, I'll give you one anecdote. In his later years, he used to have dialysis. So he used to go to the hospital thrice a week.
Right.
He used to go in very high spirits and he used to come back in very high spirits. So one day I asked him, that uncle, you go thrice a week.
Right.
How you're so happy?
Right.
So his response was, see, for a 70-year-old man, only in the hospital I can get a chance to flirt with young, beautiful nurses.
Great.
I'm
Great.
Positive attitude of looking at life.
Right.
More and that's what I learned that,
Right.
sometimes like for myself also, I used to that time when I was much younger and I'll get fever, I will behave as if so much melodrama, I'm sick and this and that.
Right.
And you can be so much more positive. And that really changes, that mindset actually changes a lot. It's not easy to even today I struggle with 2 minutes. But I think a lot of places, with my own grandfather, I saw that in every was extremely positive person. Like, he used to operate at Bombay Hospital.
Right.
And patients used to come to him without money. They don't have money. He used to do it that way.
Right.
Never bother about money at all.
Right.
So he earned his name, he earned his reputation, and he earned his, peace of mind, right?
Right.
So I think those are the things that that positivity is very important.
Absolutely.
As an entrepreneur is very difficult, because sometimes it's a lonely job.
Right.
You can be in a lot of trouble. I was in many times a lot of trouble.
Right.
So I've been there, done that, so I know that it can be very difficult.
Right.
But if you can try and remain as positive as possible, it always helps. It's a very cliche thing that I'm saying, but it's actually something I've experienced myself.
I understand that from your coming. Great. So with this, Nitish, I'm moving on to my last question.
Yeah.
Which is of my personal interest. So what came into your mind when you first time heard the name of my book? And what is your definition of Junoon, Jarurat Jugaad?
So I'll be honest, I didn't investigate too much in detail in terms of what you were doing in terms of your book. But you reached out to me, I said I'll share. I don't lose anything in sharing my experiences, right?
Right.
Even if 20 entrepreneurs will read it and get out of it, it is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in terms of Junoon, Jugaad, and sorry, what is
Junoon, Jarurat Jugaad?
Junoon,
Jarurat. Yeah, need.
Yeah, I think Junoon, passion, right? I think you cannot be a very successful entrepreneur without passion. Right? 20 years I'm running this company without passion, it's impossible, right?
Absolutely.
Go through so many ups and downs unless you received it. Like I started gaming, every time it was maybe next year gaming will take off in India, next year it will take off. It was like a mirage in the desert, right? You used to feel it to take off and then it didn't used to take off for a very long time.
Right.
8-10 years it was like that. So I think you really have to have that conviction and passion to pursue. Even today, globally, when you see you see what Elon Musk is doing, right?
Right.
How can you achieve that without passion?
Absolutely.
Right. So I think it is this. In terms of need, I'm not sure from what perspective you are putting it as a book title. Can you explain that a bit?
So from my point of view, it's basically the need of the customer. Like it's about basically the business model.
Business model.
Because how do you understand the need of your market, your customer, and whatever you're producing, how you're addressing that?
I think in today's world, especially with the way it has become a very flat world, right?
Right.
Every consumer has everything on his fingertip at 1 second, all information. That information arbitrage doesn't exist anymore.
Absolutely.
And therefore, until and unless you are able to really solve something for the consumer,
right,
being a sustainable business model is going to be impossible.
Right.
Therefore, I think it's very important to understand and continuously move, and also understand that need is continuously a moving need.
Right.
Therefore, you will have to keep evolving very faster. I think the pace of evolution has got accelerated now.
Right.
More technology businesses, but also I think for other businesses, because the disruption is very fast.
Right.
And therefore, you have to keep, momentum. So you got Junoon, Jarurat, and
Jugaad.
Jugaad, of course. In our history of 20 years, we would have done all the Jugaad that was required, right? Not in a bad way.
Obviously, right.
But I think I'm doing Sachin was a Jugaad only in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In my language, it is basically that keep the ball rolling. That you will never be so resourceful that you can have all the resources to do whatever you want to do. You need to find out ways to keep it rolling and keep it look for the next day and keep moving.
My learning in that is that there is no ideal situation,
right,
for which you have to wait and then do something, right?
Right.
You have to keep trying. You have to keep thinking of ways around the problems that you are having.
Right.
So great. I think it's a good title you have.
Great. So,
tell me a little bit about your own background, no?
Sure, I'll tell you. So, primarily, I'm into business of BPO, KPO from last almost 2 decades now. Started in 2003 only. So, what we do is we create. So initially, we're primarily into BPO. We used to work for telecom banks, doing all kind of processes for them, like from sales to collection, retention, customer services for them. Basically, it's to do complete lifecycle management for retail customers initially. We were at one point of time the largest telemarketing partner for Vodafone across globe. We used to acquire around 18,000 postpaid numbers for them monthly, right? Around some time back. Then what we realized is that I realized that BPO is not a future game, right? It will die its own death, right? So now what we have from last 4 years, in fact, we launched our own product called Dial Desk, which is a fusion of cloud telephony, CRM, and BPO. Right, where we offer complete customer service solutions to SME on a pay-per-use kind of model. So suppose say as low as say 1.5 lakh rupees of per annum kind of cost, you get a 24/7 number, you get which is manned by people and trained on your process. There's a CRM on which you can design your complete ticket management workflow and all the thing. This is what we started around 2 years back when we started working for SMEs. Okay. So now what we are focusing is that we are not a normal BPO. We focus only on solution where either we can add revenue or we can cut on heavy cost for customers. So we have a lot of good business case we have created for a lot of our customers. Like in FMCG, we work for clients like GPI, which is a brand owner of Marlboro, and we have replaced the complete field model into a telecalling and a technology-based model. Okay. So what we claim now is that transactional BPO will die, and we are here to kill. So, and then journey we realized that our own product. So we were more of a solution and execution company. We were not a product company. So we thought that putting a product and then not doing justice with it would not be the right thing. So we realized, and we tied up with Zendesk, which is one of the finest ticket management software in the globe. Then we tied up with Lead Square, which is an Indian company for sales and marketing automation. So now we use all these technologies to create solutions around various business problems for small to large corporates. But Dial-S is one more product where we are targeting all your SMEs, solopreneurs, medium enterprises, basically a team size of 5 to 20. And all that to help them in automation of their marketing tools, automation of their complete sales management, and then customer services on where we don't only do consultancy with them. We do consultancy. We create a process for them. We put technology for them, and then we deploy our own people for them in case they need it. That's what we do as on date.
You are based out of where?
Noida. So we are based in Noida, but we have multiple centers across country. So we have center at Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Hyderabad, at multiple locations.
What made you write this book?
So obviously there are a lot. So I'm from I'm a first generation entrepreneur. No one in my life, my family has ever done business. My father was working with railways. So again, typical that middle class mindset of like even today, if I tell him the size of my business, he might go get fainted. Gary, the size of what you're talking about right now, right? So I have my own learning, and what I realized is that basically a lot of my previous years, right? So 20 years, what I've done in 20 years, I think I can do it maybe in next 4 years. So I think what I realized that clarity was something which was missing initially, right? We just do it because out of passion, right? And so in that during we learned our own hard ways. But then I thought that okay, I have my story to sell. But then I realized that why to waste this 20 years of precious time of anybody who want to do business, right? So if I can put some learning into into right place, into right format, and even if I can inspire one person, or if I can save few years of even one person, I think that would make sense. And then I see a lot of people who say that okay, I'm doing it because I am passionate about it. But then you ask them 2 more questions, and then they see 2 more problems. They surrender to the idea. So how I describe passion is that a dream in which you can exchange in lieu of infinite pain, right? Where you put a condition to it, then it's a desire. It's not a passion, right? You will, the moment that condition is not there, you will surrender. And in business, I think you know better than me that you cannot surrender, right? You need to get out. You need to get out, right? Similarly, if you don't understand the need of your customer, how it doesn't matter that even if you're passionate, if you don't understand your customer, you can't do anything about it, right? And then throughout a journey, there will be not a single day when you will be completely resourceful for whatever you want to do. You have all the resources in place, right? So how do you see the next? So what is important is that you see the next day. So to see the next day, you need to do a jugaad, like what we call it in Indian language. But ultimately, it's a way of doing things in a smarter way with whatever you have. So I think for me, seeing the next day is important, right? So the complete book is based on 10 points, which is one is the learning, that you need to have clarity and learning, the 2 fundamentals. These three ingredients, which is Junoon, Jarurat and Jugaad. The 4th element which can make you from a follower to a leader is how well you understand your customer and how well you are able to create a customer experience around you. Then whatever business you do, you go to multiple stages, like you are right now into a scale-up position where you are scaling up to different level, right? But when you start a model, you are into a survival stage where you go and validate your business model. Then you might enter into struggle stage where you are able to create a model, but you are not able to meet your ends, right? Then you come to a stage which is the stabilization model, where you have decent income and you're able to pay your debts and you're able to take a fixed amount for yourself. I think this is where this is called the death trap, where most of the people get relaxed, right? Okay, now I think I'm home.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the major challenge and obstacle I've seen in India, which stopping us people from going to the next level, right? Where they don't think about scaling it up. They want to relax. So I call it as a death trap, basically, for an entrepreneur. And next is obviously the scaling up model, that where you bring society, country, and your people around it, where the objective of your life becomes much more bigger than what you have been doing it throughout your journey. So that's all is about. And then I've been meeting a lot of entrepreneurs like you. I've met somebody who has I met Nitish Mittersain, the owner of India Mart, right? So everybody. So I'm just trying to revalidate these points, that how whether my thought process or context is right or wrong. And everybody has given me so much, I think, validation on these points, and everybody has actually given a lot of thumbs up on that. So I think just trying to put it into the right format and give it to people if they can inspire anybody in life. So that was the whole idea of the book.
Great. Thank you for reaching out to me.
Great, Nitish. Wonderful meeting you. And so I'm so much thankful to you for giving us the time. And wonderful, a lot of learning I have for me, and a lot of value to add in book again. And I wish you all the best, and looking forward to your IPO and a lot of new ventures from you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nitish. Bye. Take care. Thanks.